Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. Today's episode is sponsored by my 3D printing website. Visit dangly3d.com where you can get your hands on the brand new Jumbo Carmen Chameleon in Rainbow. And yes, it comes with jumbo cookies. There are limited quantities available for this one, so get yours while you can at dangly3d.com. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Silver Syndicate. You don't want a female to take the lead? No problem. This is a small bit of maliciousness that happened years ago, but to this day is still one of my favorite stories to tell. So there needs to be a bit of context to this one for you to understand the beauty of what happened. I was in a traditional kung fu school for 9 years. My shifu teacher was one of the most honest and respectable men I've ever known. In this school, there was a certain etiquette you had to follow out of both respect for the art and your fellow students. We had things like bowing before entering doorways, always facing north to take off our sash, stuff like that. Keep in mind that we weren't just teaching students here, we fostered a family and treated one another as if we were all brothers and sisters. One of the rules was that men wore their sashes on the right, while women wore their sashes on the left. I am a trans male, and my shifu was one of very few people who knew this. Also, I present very androgynous. My shifu and I talked about it when I came out to him because I was concerned about how it would affect the etiquette of the school, and we both agreed that neither of us cared how I wore my sash. So I just kept it on the left out of habit. Very friendly conversation. At my school, we did a traditional performance every year for Chinese New Year called a lion head dance. If you look it up online, it's both intriguing and hilarious to watch because it's essentially 2 people underneath a large, fluffy, papier-mâché lion. We would do this for restaurants, schools, or event centers. We even got to perform for the Chinese consulate at one time. Basically, one person is in the head of the lion while the other operates the tail, and we work together to cleanse the space to ensure a year of good fortune for the establishment and scare away evil spirits. Everyone always loved these events, and it was some of the most fun performances I had ever done. There's drums, dancing, firecrackers, the whole deal. I was almost always in a lion with my shifu because we made a surprisingly good team. One year, we went to this little Chinese restaurant who hired us to do our normal thing. We get there, we set up, lay out the equipment, and begin stretching before the performance. This performance was one lion with me in the tail and my shifu in the head. As we're talking and getting ready, suddenly the owner of the establishment walks over to my shifu and I with the most disappointed look on his face. My shifu asks if everything is alright, and this guy just started in on my shifu through gritted teeth. He originally asked why I was standing there, and my shifu, while confused, said that I was his tail for the night. The owner said that this was highly disrespectful because a woman shouldn't be in the performance and should never be in the lion. My shifu, now with a deadpan look on his face, chuckled and basically said, we don't live in the days of Chinese dynasties anymore, sir. This is my student. I am their teacher, and they are more than welcome to perform and represent my school. The owner kept on going off about how it's disrespectful to the culture and how I shouldn't even be in the show because I was a female. My shifu looked back at me, looked at the owner, got a cheeky little grin on his face, and said, "No problem." He turned to me, grabbed my sash, twisted it to my right side, bowed, and addressed me as Didi, meaning younger brother, before turning back to the owner. He had the most shocked and appalled look on his face, and it took me everything I had not to just bust up laughing. The owner huffed, told us to just do the show, and stormed off. And just as a little cherry on the top of this interaction, I went to get into the tail, and my shifu stopped me, motioning for me to get into the head of the lion. So I got to lead the show that night, and the owner just had to sit back and deal with the fact that he didn't get his way by throwing a sexist fit. The year after, we got hired by the same restaurant, and my Shifu, instead of rejecting it, made absolutely sure that the performance that night was all female students. The owner didn't say a word. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Zaida Zobu. It says, "I love how your Shifu absolutely had your back. It's always good to know you've got an adult you can trust ready to step up for you." OP responded to this one and said, "I had a very abusive father, so whenever I went to class, that was my home and my family. At one point, we were at a festival and my genetic father showed up and pulled me aside to talk. After a while, my school got concerned, and knowing the situation with my genetic father, my Shifu came and found me with 2 other black sash ranked students by his side. Black is the highest level of sash you can get, and each red stripe on the sash indicates your level of skill. My Shifu was a wonderfully terrifying 7 stripes on black. They literally escorted my genetic father out of the festival and stood between me and him the entire time. My Shifu always supported and protected me when he could, and I owe him a lot for everything he did. I've always been mesmerized every single time I've seen one of those lion dances. Granted, I've only seen them in videos and not in real life though. OP's Shifu here seems like a wonderful person who is accepting of everybody, and that's exactly how it should be." This story comes to us from G-Wheel. "Think I don't do anything and want me to write down my jobs for the week? Okay." I was in the United States Air Force at the time of this and was working IT and as an information manager for a maintenance squadron. There were 6 other information managers who could have done IT as it was a core task of our career field. None of them wanted to, and I didn't want to do paperwork, so it was a good fit. I ended up snowballing tasks and was soon in charge of doing all the AV stuff for the squadron. Christmas slides? OP will make them. Fundraiser? OP will handle it. I even ended up with a base job where I had to go to a specific location during crisis, tornadoes, if there was a base attack, etc., to do backroom information management stuff for all the bigwigs of the base. I hated it. I didn't see the point of information managers there. I did the job without complaining though. It was my job. The squadron was the second largest account on the base, 650 pieces of equipment, and over 200 personnel spread over multiple hangars. I was also the only IT person with a line badge, so I was allowed to freely go on the flight line without an escort. 3 of our work section were on the flight line and required the badge or an escort to get to. For some reason, I rub crappy leadership the wrong way. I generally don't take crap. If something is wrong, I speak up. I don't butt kiss because I don't do the politic crap. It's a job. I do my job. Everyone should just care about their job. Politics be darned. Everyone in the squadron loved me, and some places would call me Bill Gates. I was there when they called. If I couldn't fix the problem in 10 to 15 minutes, I would swap the bad equipment out. I always brought some with me. The leadership was crappy. Our first sergeant was someone we call retired on active duty, road sergeant. They don't give an F. They're in a spot that they're comfortable in and don't care about getting the next rank or know they've kissed enough butt to skate by. For example, I'm fixing her laptop on a Friday morning. I'm bored, I don't really have anything to do for the day. B, you're a first sergeant. Your job is to gauge squadron morale. Know what the shops are up to. You always have something to do. Go talk to people because I can tell you morale sucks butt right now. At one point, they decided it was time to catch me red-handed being lazy. The first sergeant came in and told all 7 of us that we're going to track the jobs we do for the week. We're going to do this from here on out, and it was directed by the group commander. Flight, squadron, group, wing, the base, command, Air Force wide. Okay, we doubt that, but we'll do it. I made an Excel sheet for us all to share and write down our jobs. Each information manager had their own tab and columns to fill in the job. The date, the time they started it, the time they finished it. The sheet would automatically count the jobs, spit out how long it took to complete a job, and give an average time it takes to complete them. It took me all of 5 minutes to throw it together. That week was a normal week for me. I'd get various calls. My account is locked out because I forgot my password. I can't access FedLog because the base IT moved the drives, so I had to remap the location so they could order parts again. My PC is messed up and won't do X, so I'd fix it or swap it out. If I swapped it, I had a bank set up with a keyboard bank so I could use one mouse and keyboard for up to 24 PCs. I'd wait to build up at least 5 and reinstall Windows on all of them at once. I had to delete them from the Squadron's account online, then add them again after the RIS so the network could recognize them and allow it on them. I'd usually do remote work while I did this. At the end of the week, the first sergeant checked the sheet during the weekly Squadron Commander's briefing, which was another job for me, putting together the slides for the briefing, which involved embedding an Excel document for performance reports in it. Another document I managed since no one else wanted to. I was waiting with giddy excitement. I knew what it was going to show. The other information managers had around 100 jobs each, processed X decoration or award, processed X number of performance reports, just paperwork stuff like that. Then comes my slide. I had over 650 jobs that week. I was all over every worksite. There are lots of issues with the PCs. They take some big abuse from the maintenance guys. A lot of it is because most of them suck with computers and screw stuff up. One guy had 3 of those malware search bar things installed somehow and couldn't understand why it was an issue. The first sergeant announced Monday morning that we were ditching the job tracking and no longer had to do it. I guess the maintenance group commander must have changed his mind in 1 week. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Background Spray 1575. It says, "Too many leaders are nothing more than bullies in stuffed shirts. They can't stand when underlings stand up for themselves. Many consider it having their leadership challenged and react like children. Sorry you were not recognized for your exemplary service. A true leader loves staff like you." OP responded and said, "I had one when I first got there. He was there for about 6 months before he got orders. Absolutely great guy. Recognized good workers. His door was actually always open instead of just saying it. He always had time to sit and talk, even if it was just to shoot the crap. I had some great conversations with the guy and learned a lot from him in those 6 months." There's an old saying that you can only manage what you can measure, and when they decided to measure, they realized that OP didn't really need a lot of managing. This story comes to us from Brother P. Think I'm too involved in everything? Fine, I'm out. This has a bit of a long setup, sorry. Back in the 80s, I was a university student majoring in English in a smallish school. I was one of a small number of students with my own computer, and got to know a lot about word processors, desktop publishing software, and more generally, MS-DOS, the text-based precursor operating system to Windows. Many of the professors in the department were just starting to buy computers to do their research and writing, and so I often offered to help them with buying and setting them up, as well as helping them understand DOS and using their word processors. I and a few friends took over editing and publishing the annual literary magazine, and we also started a department newsletter. I was editor of both. I also served as the student representative on the faculty council. I believed in being useful, and it didn't hurt that the professors all offered to be references for me in exchange. However, for some reason, one of the professors in the department took umbrage with me for all this. He was usually very friendly to all the other students, but when he'd see me, he'd just brusquely pass by. Then, in my senior year, he became the department head, and that's when things came to a head. One day, one of the professors asked me to format his forthcoming book for publication. There was a paid research associate in the department, but she didn't know how to use desktop publishing software or how to do layout. Whereas I, as editor of the magazine and newsletter, had a lot of experience with both. However, she complained to the department head that I was taking her job. She knew he didn't like me, so she was stirring up crap deliberately. Well, he came running, literally he ran, up to me and started berating me in front of the research associate and the professor who asked me the favor. He ranted about the things I was doing and said, "You're too involved in everything and it isn't appropriate. You are just an undergrad here and I don't appreciate your undermining research associate." He didn't give me a chance to reply, just turned on his heel and strode back to his office, no doubt feeling good about bullying a student. Cue the malicious compliance. Since he felt I was too involved in everything, I stopped helping everyone. Printer jammed? Sorry. Lost your Word file? That's a shame. Having trouble making a backup of your novel? Wish I knew what to tell you. Need to install that new hard drive? Guess you're gonna have to bring it into the computer shop and pay. Department newsletter, which the president of the university had personally congratulated me on, ceased publication. After a few weeks, with things having ground to a halt, the crap hit the fan. The other professors all took my side and called for an emergency faculty council meeting. Even though I was the student rep, it was closed door, so I never got to hear what happened. The minutes of the meeting merely said, "Discussion regarding research activities." It lasted for well over an hour, and when it was over, the department head called me and invited me into his office. Once again, he did all the talking, but this time, he told me he regretted his harsh words, offered a shamefaced apology, told me that he appreciated all the help I had given his colleagues in the past, and expressed his wish that we could put this unfortunate misunderstanding behind us. We shook hands and parted enemies. Things went back to normal. I finished my undergrad degree and stuck around to do my master's. I continued to do what I always did and even helped launch a writing tutorial center in the department that is still operating 35 years later. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Tamaline. It says, "He took accountability? What parallel universe was this?" OP responded and said, "To paraphrase Shakespeare, some are born accountable, some take accountability, and some have accountability thrust upon them." That last part is completely true, and you know that's what happened with this professor. They were only apologizing because they were made to, and they'll continue to treat other students like absolute crap. The one thing I don't agree with in this one is that the professor was able to give a closed-door apology to OP. Excuse me? You dressed down OP in public? Your apology should be public as well. Other people need to hear you put your tail between your legs. This story comes to us from Blunt But Not On Purpose. Want all the documents? No problem. Many years ago, I did all kinds of admin work at an oil terminal. One of my jobs was to take care of the documents after vessels had been loaded. Bills of lading would usually have to be couriered to a bank, so I'd take care of that as well. Now, I said bills of lading had to be couriered to a bank, but that's not entirely true. Every time a vessel would come to load, we'd receive a document distribution matrix. Originals of document X to be sent to A, copies to B, C, and D. Originals of document Y to be sent to B, well, you get the gist. I would usually completely ignore that matrix. I knew exactly who needed what, and I knew that the bank only cared about the bills of lading, so I'd just send them those, and that was never a problem. That is, until someone new started at said bank and would complain about missing documents. Next time, I added some more documents that I reckoned might be vaguely relevant, but again, they complained about missing documents. I'm still not sure why that was, only the bills of lading was relevant to them. But the next time a vessel had loaded, I was very happy to give them exactly what they wanted. The document distribution matrix was probably once drafted by someone who didn't know what they were doing, then ignored by everyone, so it never became a problem. In this case, however, I was going to need a bigger envelope. I followed the matrix to the letter. One original plus 4 copies, you got it. I was really happy because I'd spotted the fatal flaw. Some background first. For every chemical product, there is a Material Safety Data Sheet, MSDS. They contain all sorts of information regarding safety of the product, and over time, they've become monstrosities. So here's what made me so happy. The matrix also mentioned 1 original and 4 copies of the MSDS, which was a 250 plus page document. There is absolutely no reason why the bank would need even one copy of the MSDS, but it was in the Matrix and I'd been told to follow the Matrix. So I did. I printed it 5 times, copied all other documents 4 times, and ended up with a stack of over 1,500 pages. Here's where my sadism kicked in. The 3 original bills of lading, the only documents I knew the bank actually needed, went randomly into that stack. The person on the other side would have to go through that entire stack to find those 3 pieces of paper they really needed. I heard nothing from them. The next time I had to send documents to the bank again, I reverted to what I'd always sent to them. Again, silence. That's when I knew I'd won. From then on, all was back to normal. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Throwaway Ray Ray. It says, the best part of this was putting the relevant documents in with the mountains of crap. Like a sort of sadistic jigsaw-style find-and-seek exercise for the bureaucrats at the bank. OP responded to this one and said, putting them into that massive stack was pretty much the best feeling I've ever experienced. Many people in the comments for this one said that OP should have continued until they begged him to stop, but OP did mention that this was a whole morning's worth of work and 3 full reams of paper, so it was a lot of work on their end as well, and just not worth the time to make it even worse for the people at the bank. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.